Welcome to the Mindful Runner podcast, a show about running and racing, trail and ultra in South Africa. Along the way, we'll be talking training, gear, nutrition, and mindfulness, all in the context of the South African racing scene. I'm your host, Fred Richardson, founder and head coach at Mindful Runner. Stay tuned as I do my best to give you all the information and none of the waffle. Okay. Welcome. Thanks for joining us today. We're about to jump off into something that makes me a little nervous, and that's exploring the why of running. It's deeply personal for me, and I'm sure it is for many of you. Hopefully I can share some insights that will help you take it forward. So let's jump right in. So, just a personal story that kind of sets the tone. In 2023, I started the MacBack 200-mile race, and things just went wrong from the start for me. I couldn't get my contacts in before the start of the race, and I struggled and struggled. Eventually, it was too late. I just left the contacts. Couldn't run, so I didn't run with my contacts. I got to the start line. So those of you who are watching that video, I literally got to the start line at the start as the start gun went off. I was rattled. I'd forgotten my running poles. Within the first 10 Ks, I realized that I was running way too fast. My heart rate was cranked up. Everything was just wrong. By the time I got to Mac Hut, which is about 55 Ks into that race, I realized like things were not right. I was nauseous. I just couldn't settle. And I knew I'd be seeing Debbie in the next 10 Ks or so. So that was like a thing that I was really excited about. It would help me settle. I'd see Deb. I'd feel better. I'd get some proper nutrition in, get some advice from her. And when I got to the aid station, they'd locked that aid station, the gates to the aid station. So Debbie couldn't get there. And my wheels came off. It was 3 o'clock in the morning. There I am feeling very sorry for myself. So I thought, okay, cool. Let me just sit down, think this through, get some nutrition in, and try and recover a little bit. So I'm lying there in the cold at Mac pools, and I drank a protein shake. And within minutes, I was projectile vomiting that all over the place. So now I'm really not happy. I'm throwing up. It's cold. Nothing's working for me. And I let the whole enormity of the next 260 kilometers get into my head. All I could think about was, those big climbs coming up. And there's that, it's going to get hot tomorrow, and it's predicted to be 30 degrees, and I don't do well in the heat. And all of these things just stacked up against me. So I phoned Debbie and I said, I'm done. I'm out of here. I'll see you back along the trail. I'll meet you there. So got back to where Deb was waiting. And while we were still sitting in the car and she was trying to convince me to continue, Ilov Hoffman, the race organizer, drove up and he said, look, you either get out of the car now or you're out of the race. And I said to him, look, I'm out of the race. I'm pulling out. I don't want a part of this race. So he said to me, tell you what, come back on Friday morning and start the 100-mile race with the 100-mile runners. This is like Thursday morning, 4 o'clock. And I just said, no, there's no chance. There's no ways I'm doing that. Anyway, cut this story slightly short. Overnight on Thursday night, I thought things through. And come Friday morning, now the race is starting at midday, Friday morning about 6 o'clock. I'm lying there, I'm thinking about all of the things that I teach people about managing your race and about the mental aspect of things and breaking things down and being mindful. And I had ignored all of that stuff and I knew how to do it. And the only way, because like the previous day I'd gone, that's it, I'm not running anymore. I'm too old for this. This is ridiculous. I'm just going to coach people from now on. I'm not participating in races. I was completely out of it. But by the Friday morning, I was working the stuff through and I was going, but hang on, I know how to do this. This is what I coach. And the only way to prove that what I'm saying is true is to go back and do it. Cut a long story short there, I had such a good run the next day. I ran that 100-miler. I finished with Monet Lombard. We had such a good race going through. And I came out of that run more in love with running than I ever had been before. It was just, everything just clicked. And, you talk about a why. I don't know if that was a why, but for me, deep down, I run because I love to run. Now, it's running is much more than physical. For many of us, it's not just a physical activity. It's something that, like for countless individuals, it's a meditative practice. Again and again, you'll see people talking about their running when asked about their why. It's a way to escape from the world. It's my meditation. It's my prayer. It's where I get clarity. Again and again, running is much more than just a physical activity. It resonates with us. It's at a genetic level. When you hear the expression, I was born to run, you can feel that in your bones. And running just awakens and satisfies a deeply primal part of us. And that whole journey of self-discovery through running is the driving force behind what we do at Mindful Runner. It's not just, I'm going to go run a 21K or I'm going to go run a 10K. We want to be involved with the humans. We want people to experience this incredible shift that happens when you find that you are more capable than you thought you were. When you're running out there and you're involved in any race, whether it's a 5K to a 100-mile race, you're surrounded by other humans. And it doesn't matter what walk of life they come from, or what their creed is, or what their color, or their occupation, or their station in life. Those are other human beings. They're experiencing the same as what you experience. You can start a race in the middle of France with a whole bunch of people who don't speak your language, and you have so much in common with them already. That's the humanity of the running. And, for many people, there are personal whys, but we'll talk about them. We'll talk about the limitations and how I think and how we try and teach people to get past this need for the why. But let's dig into the why first of all. So think about your reason for running, right? What is it that gets you out the door? Why do you start in the morning? Is it for fitness, mental clarity, to get out in nature? Now, all of those things are work. There's nothing wrong with any of those things. We all have different reasons for why we start running. But this is the starting point, yeah? So why don't you just take a moment and think about what it is that got you running and what are your personal reasons for continuing to run? While you think about that one, I'm going to play one of the best clips I've seen in a long time. And I do have Walter's permission to play this, so take a listen.
If you watch these big names on YouTube talking about how they train for ultra trail and 100-miler and whatnot and whatnot, they always tell you it's about the why. You need to find the why. But today I don't know why. I don't know why I'm doing this. It's hot. It's terribly hot. It's not nice. It's not lekker. It's horrible. That's my why. I don't know why. It's stupid.
And I absolutely love this clip because there are so many of us who go through these moments, exactly as Walter was saying there. You've got people on YouTube, you've got influencers going, oh, you must have a why. And for many of us, there isn't that definitive why. And at times the why is temporary. It's because I can. It's because I'm running for charity. It's because I want to be able to say I finished a 21K race. Whatever those whys are, those goal-oriented whys are temporary, right? Because they've finished, and once you've achieved that 21K race, what are you going to do? You're going to run another one. Or are you finished? Are you done? You're never running another 21. That charity is never going to be satisfied. They're always going to want more money and more money and more money. And so often we see when somebody is running for an extrinsic reason like that, where you are trying to satisfy something outside of yourself. When you actually achieve that goal, when you raise the money for that charity, when you run that 21K and get that medal, almost immediately after that, the question is, now what? What's next? And there's that post-runners blues. There's that depression that people go through after achieving the big thing that they had set up. And this is not a new phenomenon. It's something that's been around for centuries, obviously. But it got me thinking 10, 15 years ago, along these lines of how do we overcome that depression? How do we overcome that blue feeling? And it comes down to
This is
finding something that's bigger than the end goal, that's bigger than goal-orientated running. So goal-orientated running has a purpose. It gets you out of bed sometimes. It motivates you when you first start running. But we want to move past that goal-orientated
this is
focus. And this clip from one of my favorite running movies is not upside down or sideways, by the way. But this is from Chariots of Fire. And whether you're Christian or not, or religious or not, this should, if you're a runner, resonate with you.
this is
God made me
this is
fast.
this is
And when I
this is
run,
this
I
is
feel this
this is
pleasure.
this is
Eric
this is
Little
this is
in an extract from Chariots of Fire.
this is
Now, we might not be winning the way Eric was, but it is that sense of honor the gift. If you're capable and you're able to move and run and experience mountains and mountain trails, then it's almost a disservice to yourself to not get out there and find out what you can do and do it for the pleasure of it. So we then take running as a mindful practice, right? It's a way of connecting with the rhythms of life, with the beat of the planet. It's a way of learning to focus internally. It's a way to clear up your mental problems. It's a way to balance yourself emotionally. That's how we approach the practice of mindful running, is we're looking for that perfect run. We're looking for running perfection. Whether you ever have a perfect run or not is really not the point. The point is the pursuit of perfection. That's where the beauty lies. Now, there's a group of running monks in Japan, very famous, Mount High. And over the space of 5 years, these guys run 1,000 miles. And they go through various trials. And the abbot of that particular monastery, he was one day asked by a photojournalist, "Why do you run?" And the question confused him. He couldn't relate to the question. You know, it was a case of, it's like asking fish in the sea why they swim. You run because it's what you do. So we look at this process then of running, and you know, we often talk about trust the process. What we're really saying is that trusting the process is get out of the way of yourself. Like, relax, get out of your own way, and let your body do its thing. Find the flow of running. Look for those moments in which you can find flow. It lifts it transcends the why. Yeah, it goes past the why, because this is what we do. We run. We are runners. And trail running is the thing that allows us to connect much easier to mindful running. You know, or to mindfulness, never mind mindful running. There's an expression we have, look up and die, when you're on a trail run, right? Because the moment you are not paying attention to the trail and being present, and you look up to see the view, you're going to trip. So trail running really fosters this sense of mindfulness is an easy thing to do when you're trail running. It's a little more difficult when you're road running, because road running, you can do the mindless running. You don't have to pay attention to where you are. So trail running lends itself. But once you understand what we're going for, once you understand the concept of we're looking to use our running as a form of meditation, as a form of prayer, as a form of expressing our genetic need, then you can extend that onto the road just as easily. So ask yourselves now, I mean, I'm asking you now actually, what is the most meaningful thing or the most meaningful experience you've had on trail in the last while? Just give it a bit of thought. Is it the people you've encountered, trail you've run, the sunrise, seeing a waterfall, feeling the rain come in? All of those things, they're unique to what we can do out on trails. And they connect you to the planet in a way that simply isn't possible sitting behind your desk. To be part of the environment as opposed to separate to the environment. It's a really special thing. And it's only possible if you're fit enough and strong enough and have the mind for it to get out there and run. So we foster that deeper connection with nature. And you learn so many lessons when you're stuck in the mist and you can hardly see your feet and you have 40 k's to go still to your destination. There is no amount of anger that's going to chase the mist away. You can't punch mist. It doesn't know you're there. It's completely inanimate. You've got to find a way within yourself to settle with it, to accept the fact that you're going to go much slower now. That is the situation. You handle what you can and you let go of the rest. And that's what mindfulness is going to teach you. And it's how it's going to help you get through those problems out in nature when you're trail racing, but also it reflects into the deeper world. Yeah. And, you know, we run on our local trails, all of us, especially those who are city-based. We're limited in the trails we have, but we can build these deeper relationships with our trails in the sense that we're talking about running perfection and finding that perfect run. Part of that perfect run is where am I putting my feet? How am I feeling? How's the flow of the trail? You can find a section of your local trail and try and run that perfectly. It could be 100 meters. It could be one climb. It could be one descent. Look to run that perfectly. That becomes so much bigger than just, oh no, I need to get a medal or I need to raise money. You are spending time with yourself and you're fostering this relationship with nature, with the trails. So get out there, look for those meaningful, you don't have to look for them actually. They will happen. It's the connection with the other people. It's the experience of nature. And it's understanding that deep inside you are born for this. You're meant to run. So let's look at some practical things you can do. Okay, because that is the intention behind these webinars, is always to have practical takeaways. I've done a lot of esoteric waffle now. Let's look at how we can use these going forward. So first off, journaling, right? If you don't journal at the moment, it's probably a good thing to start and a good idea to start it now. So one of the things I'd like you to do is sit down in your journal, take a moment and reflect on the question, what does running mean to me, right? Spend some time with it. Let it bubble around. It doesn't have to have a specific answer or there's no right or wrong answer, right? You're just journaling, you're speaking to yourself and for yourself. And then visualize this afternoon, this evening, visualize your ideal run. Like, what is your ideal run going to look like? Is it a long run? Is it a trail run? Is it a road run? How are you going to know you've hit that perfect run? You've chosen every line properly. Your foot's gone down in exactly the right way. Your body's moved beautifully. Your breathing is good. What is that going to mean to you? Visualize that. And this visualization technique then extends into, you can use for your racing, for your training before you go out for a run. What's the perfect run going to feel like? And then try and activate that. Try and see that visual exercise in reality. Okay. And another thing that's worth thinking about is, how does your running align with your life goals? How does your running impact the rest of your life? Are they completely separate? Or can you see places in which running is having a positive impact or a negative impact. These are just things to think about. What you choose to do with them is entirely up to you. So, practical takeaways. If you're not journaling right now, start a journal. If you have an iPad or an iPod or an iPod or iPhone, there's a little journaling app on there. There's journaling apps on many phones. Just start a journal. What does running mean to me? You can do a voice record, but get the process going. And then visualization exercise. Imagine your ideal run. It doesn't have to be a 5-hour run. It could be just 90 seconds of absolute perfection. And then explore how your runs align with your life goals. Those are the practical takeaways. Okay. Let's hit that Q&A. If you have questions, that's me done, guys. It's been an interesting share, and probably the first time I've shared this information in this way. Anybody got any questions, any comments, any observations? Okay. Good question, Paul. So how to work on your mindfulness during running. And that's a part of what we're bringing into our service levels, right, is how to integrate mindfulness into your running. So the first steps that we're doing is you'll see breath work is coming up in your programs, and we will increase the breath work. When I say increase, we're starting at learning how to belly breathe. And many of you probably already know how to do that, but we want to start at the base, start how to belly breathe, and then we'll do 3-point breathing, and then we'll expand that breathing into going for a walk while you're learning, while you're working your breathing, doing your breath work, and then integrate the breath work into your running, and there will be breathing techniques to use while you're running. And along the same lines, we introduce mindfulness as very simple practices, and then extend that into more and more complex ideas as you train. So it gets built into the running program, Paul. So focusing on breathing is one of the simplest ways of doing it. Trail running is obviously, as I said earlier, an inherently mindful way of running. So just doing that. Oh, Michaela, brilliant. I'm glad that we can make a difference. If you want to connect with me, with Mindful Runner, you can get onto our website. And if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of our homepage, right on there, at the bottom is a set up a link. Set up a meeting with one of the coaches. Hit that meeting button, set up a meeting, and we'll have a chat and explain to you how we work and what we can do, and how we can take your running forward. So what would be the intent with journaling? What do you use it for? So, George, journaling is just a way for you to flesh out ideas, right? And it's a way for personal reflection. So almost to take the idea and roll it around in your head and push it and prod it and poke it. That's what we're doing with the journaling. By putting it out on paper, by like letting it out, just the act of journaling already manifests that thing and makes it visible and actionable, so you can start working with it, because thoughts are banging around through our heads like crazy. But by doing this, by putting it down on paper or in electronic format, you're able to work with it because it's outside of you. If that makes any sense. Yeah. Michelle's point is 100% right. So often, and Walter made the point in his talk. I'm sorry, I made Walter sideways, but Walter made the same point. We all get bombarded with, oh, but you must have a why and it must be significant. And often, and this is the point, it isn't sustainable. You can't constantly come up with a why and a why and a why and a why. It's bigger than that, but it doesn't have to be bigger than that. If it's just correct. If you have, because sometimes, and this is what happens psychologically, right? The psychobiological model, which we have spoken about in the past. Psychobiological model says that when we're doing hard things, we are looking at how hard this is versus the reward we're going to get. And so for many people, doing really hard things needs a reward. It needs some kind of thing to allow me to keep going. But what we're trying to do from a mindful practice point of view is we're trying to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's the expression. Now, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. So we run a lot. So the discomfort is no longer such a big thing. And that end goal, that reward, becomes just the act of working towards this sense of perfection. So if you can make it not feel as difficult, difficulty is part of running, yeah, for all of us. But the difficulty shouldn't feel like a punishment. I hope that makes sense. Yeah. Graham asks a really good pertinent point here. So how can you return to mindfulness once you've hit that struggle bus in a race? This is why we've introduced the new coaching mechanisms, right? Why we brought in the new set of skills we'll be introducing over the next 6 months and a year and building on those. Because we're going to give you the skills and the tricks to get yourself back into that mindful state. We've spoken about this one in the past as well. It's very hard to have an internal dialogue when you are singing a song, when you are talking out loud, giving yourself positive reinforcement out loud. It's difficult to have an internal dialogue. So if your internal dialogue has turned negative, as they almost always do, and for many of us, and especially it seems to be prevalent in the running world, many of us are overthinkers. Yeah, we tend to be so much in our heads. And so when you get into that spiral, where you have lost the mindfulness, as I was lying there on the floor puking, thinking about all these things that were coming up, none of that was in my present. It was all imagined. None of it was real. I was imagining how bad it was going to be. We're going to give you that skill set to go, hang on, just take a moment, take a beat, start talking to yourself out loud. Tell yourself how great this is. Oh, you're lying here under the stars. Yeah, you've just thrown up, but wow, look at the stars. Absolutely beautiful. Nobody else could be having this experience. This is a unique experience. I mean, as runners, we get to places other people simply couldn't get to. Those are things to be really grateful for, right? So start building that, telling yourself these positive things, or work on the gratitude, or simply count. Because if I'm counting out loud, I can't I can't have an internal dialogue. You can't have an internal and an external dialogue at the same time. It is impossible. Give it a try. Next time you go for a run, count your footsteps. So these are ways to just things that we will work on, as I say, over the next 6 months to a year in improving your ability to access the mindfulness and to get back into flow and to lose the negative side of the influence of your negative thoughts. From Diana, I also sometimes wonder, does it have to be a big why? Because it's okay to just love it. Yeah, I can connect with nature, and running gives me the means to be able to do that and experience nature in life. It's not always easy to get up, but I've never been disappointed by doing so. Okay, this is Diana's comment. Like, that connection to nature is a big why. I mean, it's not a why in the sense that we tend to be sold it, yeah, where it must be meaningful. And isn't that like the key? Is that for it to be meaningful, it must be meaningful to other people. And that's not true. It's just going to be meaningful to you. So if it's fostering your connection with nature, then that's awesome. And if that's working for you and helping you stay sane, then what better thing to be doing? Yeah, Marie is speaking from where she is right now. Something that's helped me is to find meaning in the moment, to just be where your feet are. Fred has often referred to injuries as gifts, and that is one thing I do. Sometimes it takes a while to find out what the gift is supposed to be, but looking back, one can often see the purpose and think of the importance of acceptance and patience. Taking what's given to us and work with that. Take things as they come. And that's part of being present, right? Learning how to be present, how not to be pushed into the drama of things, and just be present, feel what you feel, and do what you do. Your feelings are valid. that you don't have to express them. You don't have to tell anyone else. But one of the most important things we can come away from, hopefully all of you can come away from, is you've got to love yourself. You've got to be patient with yourself. If you were coaching yourself and you were injured, what kind of advice would you be giving yourself? Would you be going, "No, no, get out there and run," which is what so many of us will do? If you were your own coach, what would you be saying to yourself? And that's where you bring the self-compassion in, yeah? And that's massively important, to be compassionate to yourself. Oh, yeah. So George's point, I do sometimes find the dark times also add value, and in my opinion, should not be completely avoided. It provides an opportunity for deep thoughts and evaluating core beliefs. 100%, George. We're never going to get away from, and that's part of the attraction of ultra running, isn't it? We get to meet ourselves in dark places. We get to see who we are when the going gets tough, when it's hard. How do we deal with those things? So I am not for a second suggesting we gloss over that or ignore it or try and avoid it. What I am saying is experience all of it, but don't be broken by it. This is what we're looking to do. We're looking to build that durability and the ability to say, it's dark times, but I've gone through dark times before, and I've got a skill set to help me deal with it in a way that's constructive and that's going to allow me to achieve my goal. Because the other side of that is just to fall down into the hole and not come out the other side. And then, you don't finish your race. You hate the whole event and you stop running, which we don't want. Okay, awesome. Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining. We'll do the next webinar in 2 weeks' time, but watch out. We are going to be releasing a lot of podcasts, short, info-dense, 5 to 10 minute podcasts, similar to what Debbie put out yesterday on ultra running and nutrition. So thanks for joining. See you all next time.
As always, thank you for listening. If you want to know more about Mindful Runner, check us out at mindfulrunner.co.za. On Instagram, you can find us at Mindful Runner. In the meantime, enjoy your running, happy trails, and don't forget to subscribe.